And joining us right now for more is veteran Democratic strategist Simon Rosenberg and Brian Lanza, who's Deputy Communications Director for Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. There is this news about TikTok, but I also want to start with this morning's edition of who will accept the election results and who will not, and who is willing to say that publicly and who is not. Here's Kevin McCarthy, no longer in office, and Tom Cotton, still in office.
Just to button it up, should Trump accept the results?
I think every American should accept the results.
Yeah, he would be an American.
I don't think Congress has the constitutional authority to reject electors that have been certified by a state. I will accept the results of the election and certify them if it's a fair and a free election.
Brian, McCarthy versus Cotton on this one. I'm creating this face-off, as you can tell. Cotton with caveats, McCarthy not so much. Is this War Games, is this a sign of a litmus test for anyone who might want to be Donald Trump's running mate, or is this something else this time around?
No, listen, I think this is something else. I think this is Republicans. First of all, thank you for having me. I think this is Republicans sort of getting in on the Democratic game of rejecting elections. You know, you have Democrats reject an election in 2000, in 2004, in 2008, in 2012, in 2016. And so Republicans are just jumping on the bandwagon because it's been an effective message. So I'm not surprised to hear it, but we're just joining, I guess we're just joining the general population of Democrats in denying election results these days.
Brian, you make me giggle. Simon, Republicans. Brian is a perfect example of what I have heard from Republicans, and we've heard many times of Republicans. I'm going to call it trying to muddy the waters on this topic by pointing out instances in the past that individual Democratic members have questioned some election results. Does that land as a political argument?
I mean, lying might be a different way to describe what you just heard. And no, listen, I think it's absurd. And, you know, we know what happened in 2020. Donald Trump the Republicans didn't just reject the election results in 2020. They've been rejecting it through the entire election today. I mean, we're still having this debate. But listen, I think my view, Kate, is that I think the problem for Trump isn't going to be about this. It's not even really going to necessarily be the fact that we now know he's a serial criminal, but that his agenda that we're going to be debating in the next few months, I think is going to be very difficult for him to bring to the American people. His economic agenda is going to spike inflation and slow growth. He wants to strip the rights and freedoms away of more than half the population of the United States. He wants to undo the Western alliance that's kept us safe. These are the things I think that we're going to be debating in the coming months, and I don't think it's going to go well for Donald Trump.
Let's jump ahead then and talk about agenda. I was going to go somewhere else, but we'll circle back, potentially, maybe not. Simon, yeah. President Biden is rolling out, as we have our reporters talking about, this executive action this week, according to sources, to tighten border security, security at the border. The reality is that any action taken by an individual president through executive action, it is limited. Yeah. We know this, and he knows that. So what does this then do?
Well, I think it's important as a piece of, given that we had a bipartisan deal to address border security that Donald Trump and the Republicans then blocked, the president is doing what he can with his limited powers. The right way to have done this would have been to pass this bipartisan bill that we saw come out of the Senate a few months ago. But we've already seen border flows this year drop significantly because the president's been working with our neighbors in Latin America to slow the flow coming into Mexico, which has then slowed the flow significantly into the United States. This last month, we had one of the best months in terms of flow into the border, low flow into the border in the Biden presidency. And so I think he's going to be taking incremental steps within the powers that he has to address a national challenge that is being made worse by Donald Trump and the Republicans.
Brian, things that we know. One, border security is still a top priority of voters and has been basically second behind economy in lots of polls. And two, normally this is what Republicans have run on successfully in the past. Three, Republicans, if not have completely blown their leverage on this, have hurt their leverage on this by that back and forth early this year where they wouldn't go along with a bipartisan bill. And then there were Republicans for months and months ago, over and over again, saying that Biden should go this alone, that it is in his power. Elise Stefanik, just to name a hit list. Elise Stefanik in February, Biden has the power to end the border crisis without Congress. He just doesn't want to. Troy Nehls of Texas said Congress doesn't have to do anything to secure our southern border and fix it. Carlos Jimenez of Florida said in February, President Biden can control the border today if he wanted to. He doesn't need any legislation from Congress to do so. So now you say what?
Listen, I say he broke the border. I mean, he reversed a lot of President Trump's executive actions at the start of his administration that has resulted in this mass illegal immigration coming across our borders. I mean, the rules that he passed allow benefits for illegal aliens crossing the borders. He's allowed the refugee number to extend at a dramatic rate. I mean, you really can't trust an arsonist to put out the fire, and I think that's the problem that Republicans have, is trusting Joe Biden and Democrats to do anything on the border. They started this fire. They have no desire to put it out. What you saw earlier in the year was a partisan ploy to try to get funding to Ukraine by tying border security. I think the most important thing to look at is recently
that was started by Republicans. Republicans said that, but Republicans,
sure.
let's not forget, Republicans
Sure.
said they wouldn't go along
Sure.
with Ukraine unless there was border funding. And you had a staunch conservative negotiate this, who pushed this in the Senate. I do not want to relitigate it because we've litigated it so many times, but that's it. Go.
But they did backtrack down. Republicans did backtrack down, and that's their issue. But I think it boils down to the root cause is voters trust President Trump on the border more than they trust Democrats. And the voters are smart enough to know that this fire that's happening on our border is a direct result of Joe Biden's executive actions. And so why would you trust him to fix it?
And that is one thing that is the unknowable that we'll all watch play out together, is no matter what action is taken or not taken or what arguments made, who at the end of the day, who do voters trust? That is what it's going to come down to when it comes to this vote. Clear to you, Brian, and different views from others. I'm loving this pop-up video with Brian Lanza today. It's great to see you both. Thank you, Simon.
Good to see you.
A new hour of CNN News Central starts.